Alright, so today I'm going to start a restoration on this 182 crane. Picked it up for a song. The only reason I did pick it up was because, if you know, the green button controller is rarer than rare, so if I can get this all back together and working right, this one's going to go on the layout just because of the green buttons. So this is a 182 magnetic operating crane. I don't know if it even works. But we're gonna, first things first, take it apart and clean it up and probably reshoot the silver and see where it takes us. So the first thing I did, just to see if the thing even works, is I rewired the controller to there and attach the power, and it also came with some of the original blanks. They're kind of hard to find, but we'll see if the magnet works. Yeah, that works, and the light lights up, so that part seems all good. Let's see if we got a left. Yeah, we got a left, we got right. We got right, and a little spool turn. Look at that. Alright, so mechanically we know everything works on this guy. So I don't know if I was out of shape. Up, down, left, right. Alright, and all good. Alright, so we'll go ahead now with the disassembly and cleanup. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is release the magnet, and the magnet is connected here and this screw down here for the ground. So I'll remove these two screws. Also, the magnet gets its power from the positive terminal, which is the black, and that's wired to this center section here, and that's what maintains contact. So I'm going to take out this screw and this screw to start. So those are out. Next I'm going to take out the light bulb. Put that aside, and that'll let me be able to take out the center once I get this disconnected. So the next thing I'm going to do is take out the 4 top mounting screws. That should release the top. Actually, I'm not going to do that. First things first is freeing up the wires so that top can come off. So I have to unsolder the connector wires from underneath. So take a picture first so you know what color, so you can put them back to the same places, and then you can desolder. And even before I went here to desolder, I forgot, I want to take this boom off. I already released the magnet, but to release the boom, this is a press fit rod. So you just stick the thing in there and tap that out, and that'll release the boom. So that's the boom pin that goes through those holes when I fell out. There was the boom. So that's out now. So now I don't have to worry about breaking anything, and I can go ahead and flip this over and desolder those wire connections. Okay, so the wires have been desoldered. The next thing I'm going to do is take out these 2 screws, which will free up the cable. Obviously this cable is no good, it's so stiff, so I will be replacing that. That's a 6 conductor cable that you can buy that off of eBay. So taking out these 2 screws, and then I will desolder those wires. And just a side note, these screws, I took one out already, are actually the binding nuts for the transformer power leads in. So the red and the black are what's attached to these screws. Okay, so that fiber board's been removed. Next thing I'm going to do is release the base. You release the base by bending up these tabs. One is the grounding tab, so that will probably have to be desoldered before I can fold it up. We'll take the base off next. Okay, so the base has been removed, so now I can release the top of the superstructure by removing these 4 Phillips screws. Okay, so things to note: when you release those 4 screws, the top will come off. That releases that superstructure, and then that lets this come out. That just fits into some slats up here, so that will release. The wires that feed down have little metal tabs. There's one there, and on the other side right here. So you fold those out, you can release the wires, and then when you put it back together, you feed it back through. There's a tab at the bottom and a tab way up at the top. Okay, so after I disassembled it, I have repainted the paint. What I use for actually the roofs of passenger cars and any aluminum colored metals, I actually use the Rust-Oleum aluminum paint. Goes on easy, fast dries, and matches pretty good. So you know, the controller's all cleaned up, the boom, the car body. Again, this is warm soapy water and a toothbrush just to get anything that's recessed clean, and the base. The motorized area is out here drying. What I have to do on this one, because of the superstructure, it's a major overhaul to try to get that apart. So that's all taped off and masked. I painted half of it and then hooked up the wire from the coil and grounded it, and you hold in the solenoid and you can spin that. So I just spun that 180 degrees and painted the front. So I'm waiting for that to dry and we'll start doing the reassembly. Okay, so the paint's all dry. Got the base back together. It's all cleaned up. Top is okay. Rewired a couple of the wires that were all brittle and fed them back through the base. So the next step will be putting the fiber connector back in place. Here's the fiber plate back in, with the control wire to the remote reattached. Next is the wires to the motors. So it's all been rewired. Here's the little testing. So we got the magnet power here. I don't have the magnet hooked up, that goes on with the boom, so that's working. Left, right, up. So there's no string, but here's the spool will turn clockwise and counterclockwise. So up, down. All right, so now there was no way really to video this because it's tedious. The issue with these cranes when you rebuild them, the motor in there is a double wound motor. So what that means is the buttons, when you push the buttons, that controls the direction of that the motor spins. So a double wound motor is, for simplicity, it's the same kind of setup that a gang car has. So you have 2 leads that come off of the coil on the motor, and that, depending which button gives it power, controls which way that motor spins. These things are very hard to take apart because if you don't unsolder the wires first at the base that you can pull the wires through, most people say, oh, something doesn't work, and they unscrew these top screws, and when you try to open it that way, there's not enough flex in the wires left, especially if they're older. Now they're old and brittle and don't bend. It will break those really small connections to the coil wires, and then you pretty much are done. That happened with this one, and I'll show you how I overcome that. Okay, so I know I said coil before, and I think most of you think, but technically it's the field windings. It's a double field wound. So if you've broken the field connection, there's two ways that happens. If it's just the simple way that the wire breaks off from the connector where the field exits, then you can solder right back to the same place. Most of the time the field wire actually breaks, and then you can like pull off one winding. And so here, you know, I have a roll of field cable, and you know, you can't just solder the end of this to another wire. It won't make the connection. You have to strip off the coating. So there's two ways I do it. You can do it with a razor blade, or I just hit it real lightly with a Dremel. And I don't know if you can see because of the contrast here, but all right, so this one has not been stripped yet, so I'm going to go ahead and just use a Dremel real quick. All right, so I just hit it real lightly with the Dremel, and it's not head on, it's on the side, but I don't know if you can see the contrast, but the coating is definitely off of the last ½ inch of this wire. Now you can't just solder this wire to the new, it'll never stick that way. So what I do is you pre-solder a little bit of wire at the end of the wire, and I make a U in the end. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So I bent the U in the end, and then I did the same with the field wire, and then I just put solder on that whole connection, and that gives it a little bit more strength, and it's not going to disconnect. All right, so there we go. That's all connected. It's not going to come apart, and I now have a working connection again. Hey, this can be done with any broken field wire. That's the easiest way that I found. Then of course now when you're mounting it back all up, make sure you use some kind of tape to support the wire, because of its thinness and tensile strength and all that, if it does bend, it will break. But no, we are good to go. It's been done on this unit, and now I'll put the boom on and start finishing this one up. Okay, so reinstalling the boom is fairly straightforward. You just line that up and slide that pin back through. The boom itself, if you ever have to take off the height adjustment, these are just pressed in screws. They self-thread themselves into the hole, and it's basically just a tension. And there is a little screw up here if you need to take that off, but straightforward there. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is rethread the spool so that we can hold this up so I can reinstall the magnet. So to rethread the spool, you tie a knot in one end of your string. It goes right in here, and then turn it on. Put some extra string on there in case it breaks on you. You don't have to do this all over again. And then feed it up and through the hook, and tie a knot on this end and feed it up through there, and we'll be good to go. And my hook is standing by right there. So I used about 2 feet of string, enough that you can string it twice. So again, tie the knot on there, wound up on the spool. It feeds through this little hook, and then it goes straight down the boom over the top of the pulley. And then remember to put your hook on, and then up here and you do another knot. What I do just to add a little strength onto the knot is after I tie the knots, I kind of leave them a little loose, and I put a little dab of thin, not the gel type, but thin crazy glue. That makes it hard so it's not going to pull through, and that holds it in place. So, all right, next is reinstalling the magnet. Alright, so magnet, ran that up through, down and up in here. The ground is this screw right there, and the positive gets attached to the mounting stud there. And we're all good. So now the next thing is just putting the cover on. So the cover, as you can see, has slide marks for the front studs, and the back ones are just screws. So underneath, again, you can see the studs for there that slide on, and then the 2 screw holes. So put that up there, slide it forward, that's good. Then you got to turn it upside down and put the final 2 screws in. And then the last thing you have to do is shoot this through the back and attach it to the boom. So I'm going to do that now. Alright, so we're all finished. Things to note, I did make a mistake when I was threading this. In order to have enough cable slack to hit the ground, you cannot feed it through the top. You feed it through like the 3rd one up and the 3rd hole up, and that'll give you enough to get it going. For those of you who made it to the end, total time, I probably have 6 hours invested in this restoration, and we're all done. So we'll go ahead and lower this down into the keys. Let's go ahead and turn on the magnet. Raise her up. I never had these little T-blanks before, and you know what? Pretty cool. So lower her back down. I'll turn off the magnet. There we go. There we go, all finished. Hope you guys liked it.